sat there thinking, is there a business case for S4? Will S4 help me drive innovation? And actually, is there a better way to implement S4? There's so many horror stories. What could go wrong? Then that's the purpose of this panel. You're in the right place. So we're going to have some amazing panelists today talking about these topics and giving you their perspectives. They're very much their personal perspectives as well as their organizations, but their personal perspectives. We do have an opportunity for Q&A. Let's see how the time goes. So if you do have questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A button at the top. Click on Q&A, type your question in, and we'll try and ask some questions. But let's dive straight in. I'm going to do a quick intro for the panelists, if this is at all possible. They're all amazing in their own right, and even just seeing their faces looking at me, I'm so excited for this. So first of all, Vandana, lovely to see you. Vandana Khanna, she works for Kenvue, which is J&J's consumer spin-off, and is their head of global digital finance transformation. And has a lot of experience in this area, having previously also worked at Unilever and Verizon. So thank you for joining us today, Vandana. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of, you're in the hot of one of these projects right now, and I hear one of your favorite topics is data. So that brings us on to Scott. Hi, Scott, welcome as well. So Scott is the head of data management at Phillip Morris International, and we hear that often data can be one of the reasons and complexities in this project. So Scott's going to give us his perspective. And then we've also got Bart. Hi, Bart. We're very excited to have you as well. And Bart is the CFO. I'm going to try and pronounce this in a French accent. Alliance Fromagere at Savencia. Yay! Woohoo! My GCSE French. But was also formerly Heineken. So, and Simon from the SAP session earlier is also going to introduce us, because, wow, Simon, you touched a lot of content. I've got a few more questions that I need to clarify having you on this panel. So I hope you'll all agree what an amazing group of people we've got. And so, yeah, as I said, if you've got questions, then please do let us know. So the first area we wanted to look at was around the business case for S4. Is there a business case? What does that look like? And so, Bart, I wanted to start with you, actually. I know you are in the midst of having a conversation about a business case for S4. And just why can it be so difficult to convince your execs and get sign off for a transformation like this?
Yes, hello, everybody. Thanks, Joe. Well, you're clearly talking about a massive investment, right? When you're working in finance, you normally get your investment demands and you immediately ask for the return and how many what can it save in terms of headcount, in terms of cost, and it's of course in such a transformation program it's much more difficult. So it's extremely important to look at this investment not just on its own, but really as a first step, a first enabler to actually achieve your business strategy. And before you start with a real business case and looking down at what you want to achieve with your implementation, I think the first thing you need to do is look at, what do I want to achieve with my business? What is it what I want to obtain? Is it all about pure cost reduction? Is it about integration of different businesses? Is it about business growth? And depending on where you want to go, I think it's very important that you look at that moment to your business case in light of this future, in light of what you want to achieve. And the key thing here is looking at pure as SAP or S4 of core. You cannot really immediately quantify it. It's the moment that you start to look at end-to-end and you look at, okay, what is actually S4 and the implementation of S4 enabling? What are the satellite systems that I can implement? What are the SaaS solutions that I can link into my S4 environment? That you can start calculating what it can really deliver to your business. I do think that many of these cloud-based solutions, which you can link into your S4 implementation, that's where really the benefits are. That's where really you will look end to end, and where you will see that, okay, here I can really make a step change compared to how I'm doing business before. So that's for me the key thing. Don't look at it as a one investment, just like I'm buying a new machine or I'm doing a restructuring in department, but look at it end to end and look at it, what can it deliver to your business overall. There's maybe one thing I would like to add is also, and I know for a finance person, it's maybe not always easy to talk about it, but it's also about cost avoidance. I've been in a few of these programs where you also wonder, okay, what would it cost me if I don't do it? And if I stay in a status quo and I continue with my old systems, with my old technology interfaces, etc., what would it cost me? Both in terms of maintenance of these tools, but also in terms of what do I miss compared to my competition in terms of insights, in terms of different ways of working. So if you take this into account, I think it gives you an entirely different picture on the payback and on the return on investment of such a program.
Yeah. Very good point, actually. We always think the forward, not necessarily the negative. So, but Vandana, maybe if I can ask you, you're right in the midst of one of these infamous S4 implementations at the moment at Kenvue. And therefore, what were some of the drivers for change for you?
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Vandana. Very, very happy to be here. And actually, I'm very motivated hearing Bart when you mentioned about the business case. Yeah, that is how this whole project for Kenvue started, with a business case, like all projects start. But of course, we have a burning platform. We are in a TSA exit and very much time crunch. In less than 60 days, we have one release coming up. Then very soon, the second one. In less than 8 months, we have the third release coming up. So I'm just counting days, as you can hear from my voice. So, it is critical. It started with business case, but over time, it started modifying because of the timelines, because of the pressures, because of the urgencies, and what we can do within SAP and with satellite systems also. So the most important thing we approached in this transformation is hybrid, or some people call it brownfield. We started with that approach. And in some instances, we are truly greenfield, because as a TSA exit a transformation, you have to look at some of the components which are brand new, because you have no choice left. So we are going towards greenfield in some areas, and in some areas we have definitely taken hybrid, and we are utilizing all the best ingredients, if I can use that term, to move forward because of lack of time. So it is a crazy project. It is a fun project. It is a motivating project at times, because you are doing something new for a new organization and you are literally creating history. Something never been done before. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, which not everyone gets to define and shape. So running for the, I would say, largest CPG startup in healthcare, $16 billion company. So it is exciting. It is exciting if we step back and think about it. But when you are burning your hands all the time, then it feels, oh my God, what is happening? So it is tough in those instances. But I would say, yes, we started with the right mindset that these are the few things which we can transform. These are the few things which we will have to table for later. And now we are in that mode with really the clock ticking, that what exactly can we do to make sure we are not in the penalty zone, because TSA is coming fast and furious. So how we make sure we capitalize on best of the things, not compromise on anything which was done before or what ECC offered, but actually utilize the speed and power of S/4HANA to take the company forward. So that is the most important thing which I'm trying to harness for finance, because finance is always on the front seat, and it should be. And how do we take it and spearhead it forward is what I'm championing.
Yeah. Well, and Bart mentioned there what you won't get, I guess, as a new organization, competitive in the consumer market, all those capabilities, like you said, whether that be financial reporting or better supply chain, are critical. And I guess, Scott, maybe to bring you in, because let's talk data for a second. It's not often seen as a reason to do S4. But I just wanted your perspective on that. How does that area connect to a reason?
So Joe, everyone, thank you for the time, the opportunity to speak today. Data, I think, is obviously one of the most important things, the strategy that comes along with it. In my view, it's the lifeblood of everything from the front office all the way to the analytics and some of the decision making that goes on. I think as more and more consumer and manufacturing companies start to move into a leaner ERP S/4HANA world, the ability to actually orchestrate that digital core through, I think, the data and the integration of that data for these systems to communicate, whether SAP based or whether non-SAP like Salesforce, is going to be a major driver in the efficiency and the success of moving into S/4HANA. As we look at that, the standards around the data, the master data, the transactional information that is involved with this, the definition, the standardization, the inclusion of everything data into the business cases and whether or not it's going to make sense for the organization and actually meet the efficiency needs and the business process needs, the people needs long term is extremely important. I would say, and we're seeing in some of our transformation, ongoing transformation projects within the finance and the product domains, coming in up front after that business case is approved with standard data models for the organization as much as possible, and not just really reusing what is in place today, but actually thinking through what is necessary tomorrow to meet, whether it be AI, but also consider the maintenance and support of those models, of that data, of that flow long term. We can't just implement it and forget about it. There is ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of clients now saying that, the fundamental foundations of data and driving insights, if they're not right, then actually one of the reasons to do S4 is also to focus on, Kenvue, Vandana, right? Having different ways of doing costing globally. If we're now going to have a standard way of doing that using standard data, then, even better. But Scott, quickly, because we'll come to AI later, but you touched upon it then actually. Is AI a reason to do S4? Everyone says, we need to move to AI. What's your view on that?
So if you can orchestrate the digital core and get everything to communicate together, S4 shouldn't be, AI shouldn't be the sole reason for your move to S4, but it should be a reason for your move to S4. It should be included in your business case and really kind of understanding what automation, what within your business processes, what kind of decision making within your analytics, what kind of workflows can be supported by the data, and then ultimately artificial intelligence as it is rolled out and adopted more and more. Ultimately, good data, good hygiene, the maintenance, the discipline around this is going to be key to your AI and the generative results that come out of it.
I know from conversations we've had, Scott, a lot of the challenge has been execs saying, can't we just move to it now? Can't we just get there? Why is this so hard? And actually, some of those stories coming back to our foundations, including S4, right, aren't there yet. Our data's not there yet. So maybe it's too soon. We'll come back to that. But so, and really interesting getting your views on, like I said, what's the case for S4? I think the second topic I wanted to think about was, can you use S4 to drive innovation? So actually, Simon, you talked about this in your session around sticking to standard, around using best practice, around driving adoption, and actually seeing S4 as an enabler for innovation. But one of the things we hear a lot about, Simon, is clean core, BTP extendability, and needing that to drive innovation. You need to explain it to me. Can you tell me a bit more?
Sure I can. I think one of the things we've been talking about for quite a while, as we've started engaging with our customers about moving from ECC to S4, is how do you clean up a lot of the customizations that you've done over the years. And we have tooling that obviously helps with that. And it's often amazing to see how much customization is out there, is being maintained, is taking up storage, and isn't actually even being used. So part of the clean core is definitely about how we do extensions. How can we retire them? Can we, and if we can't retire them, doing them in a new way, leveraging the BTP, and doing them in such a way that you don't cut yourself off from future upgrades that SAP will be delivering. But it isn't just about the customizations. When we think about the clean core, we're also thinking heavily about data, to the point that was just made by Scott. Absolutely fundamental that you get your data sorted out, not just from a master data point of view, but actually thinking about the data that you're keeping in your organization. Quite often we see companies doing a lift and shift to the cloud and taking with them an enormous amount of data that should have been archived, and therefore winding up, carrying those costs off into the cloud, where sometimes they can be even more onerous than they were when it was on-prem. So it's about data, it's about customizations, it's definitely about processes. We would argue, having done this for 50 years, that we have a pretty good idea of what it takes to run, the most common processes in an organization, and that we can deliver those as best practice. And in fact, our approach would be to say, always to challenge, why can't you do it this way? Because if you can do it this way, as many other organizations are, you will save yourselves a lot of time and angst. So it's a multifaceted approach when we talk about the clean core. But the upshot of getting it right is that you wind up then with a landscape that makes it much easier for you to absorb new innovation when we deliver it through our R&D programs, but equally much easier for you to plug into other solutions, whether those be from third parties or whether that's stuff you build yourself on the business technology platform. So it's a really important part of our strategy, and it feeds into ultimately what Gartner refers to as composability. They've been talking about composability as an enabler of innovation for quite some time now. As we move forward into the cloud with these hybrid architectures, with these new services, the clean core is kind of a precursor to that composability as an innovation enabler. So I hope that answers the question.
It makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to ask Vandana a similar question actually, because Simon, you talk clean core, but I hear lean core quite a lot in the terminology of, what does actually a lean core mean, Vandana? And, you drive finance, and what does good look? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question and a debate, right? This can go on, and probably we can spend the whole day talking about it, lean core versus clean core. In my mind, I think we should have limited customizations in SAP. But if you look at the data across the world, SAP controls the market share of so many transformations going around, right? SAP is the leader, ECC to S/4HANA, so many companies moving towards that. 2027 has been given the deadline. Still, many companies are struggling. How many companies have been fully able to transform? Very, very few. We have only a handful who can say, yes, I was successful and I'm happy about it. Happiness is a relative term there, right? So in my mind over here, we are also using so many SaaS solutions, HighRadius of the world, Blackline, Ariba's. And we are also trying to make sure that there is very limited customizations. But can I avoid all those customization down the road? Probably not. So I'll be fooling myself and others by saying that. But at this point, as Scott, you mentioned about data, or Simon, you touched upon this topic, we just have to make sure our data at least is pristine. We are working with that right information so that we develop a mindset or a model out there, people can utilize it to the fullest. And we also harness the power of these SaaS solutions, because why are they there for? They are there for a reason, because they are going to provide value so that we avoid all this craziness within SAP itself. But it should not be a death of all these SaaS solutions that we use them so much that we forget the power of SAP and we invest and pump in billions of dollars. So it should be return on investment, right? Why do we prepare our business cases? In order to get value out of it. So there has to be a balance. Yes, that's what we are all striving towards, not to be sway in any one direction, because both of there you have to find that fine balance, so to speak, where you utilize all the power of it, keep the core lean, clean, and then move forward and utilize and harness it. So I would suggest we should understand what value even the SaaS solutions bring. We should not have so many that we forget where to tap into, and then we are unable to track the value behind it. So limited is very important, but also not lose the power of SAP. So I would say we should utilize as much native functionality of SAP as we can, because there is so much power in it. You get the speed out of it. ECC to S/4HANA, there is speed to market. People will get value out of it. There is a huge potential in there. Some people can say, oh, my business case is not panning out into anything. No, that is a false statement. You definitely will get value, and you just have to make sure your users adapt it. Otherwise, no value achieved.
But I guess, as you said, in that architecture where you've kind of got clean, lean core with cloud applications around it, one of the other things we hear a lot about in order to drive sort of innovation and stick to standard is this cloud mindset and sort of fitting to the cloud. I guess, Bart, coming to you as sort of an experienced CFO and someone that's driven these transformations, what did driving a cloud mindset mean? And were you able to even do it?
It's an interesting question. I think Vandana mentioned already a couple of things about it. In two easy words, it would be from adaptation to adoption. I think that's something which is basically summarizing it. To give you a little bit of story, because I'm coming from, I started my career with an SAP R2 environment. So Simon, you can imagine my age already as well. And in that time there were more ABAP coding written, all tailor-made, all starting with a Z, and then that's specific for here, specific for there, just to adapt SAP to the way the business was run for many years before. I was in Kraft Foods at that time, and also Kraft realized that okay, we need to go for a more standardized way, and Mondelez definitely did it afterwards as well. And that's something which is at the long term, it's simply not sustainable. There are codes being written and processes being adapted, and basically people are moving on, and nobody knows anymore why it was done the way it was done. So creating this mindset of saying, okay, if you want to be sustainably in the right direction, if we want to have a solution where we can move on and constantly adapt to best in class, you need to stick to the standard. There is not one solution like Salesforce, you name it, that can adapt to a completely modified version of SAP. So it is very critical that you stick as much as possible to the standard. And I make it now sound very easy. It is not. I'm coming out of an implementation of CFIN in Heineken of more than 20 countries, and there is not one country that told me, oh, I'm standard. They're all special. Every single country is special. So you need to have a very strict governance in place. And if you actually force people to think with the sponsorship of the executive team, because otherwise it will be extremely hard to think about the standardization, it actually turns out that most of the things are possible to standardize. It just requires a different mindset and a different way of working, but it is possible. And clearly there are things which are very specific, and clearly in Italy there are much more legal requirements than in another country. So you will always have some things that you need to adapt. but then it's important that you have a very strict governance around it, and that you have a design authority which really watches the template and which is going to see whether there is really no other solution to be done. Otherwise, you will start deviating completely, and at the end, the only thing what you will achieve is that you have very new visuals and very new technology, but the old ways of working, and that would be a complete waste of time and budget.
For everyone that saw Georgina and Stacey's equation at the beginning, I think Bart's reminded us of that's exactly what we said, Bart, right? Which is you just end up with old ways basically in new technology.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. I guess, Simon, from an SAP perspective though, you know, sticking to standard, driving sort of the cloud mindset, you talked about that 2-tier ERP strategy and the difference between rise and grow, and maybe some clients considering a combination. What could organizations do to understand the parameters and what might work for them?
Well, I think it starts with what you call your show home, you know, really getting your teams, your business teams, to take a close look at the SAP solutions, and to do that, to Bart's point, with the mindset that says we're going to try and make this work, not looking for reasons why it can't work, you know, and why we have to be different. So that would be that's where I would suggest one starts. And then also to leverage tools like Signavio, which we are finding are really useful for helping bridge that gap between the business process owner, the business person, and IT, who has to then, you know, build the systems out. It's a really good way of getting that conversation going and putting processes under the spotlight to understand whether there are valid reasons why they have to be tweaked or, you know, can't be taken out of the box.
Thank you. Now, we're running out of time, so I was going to ask you a question on AI, because I feel like you can't have a panel and not talk about AI, but actually most people listening on the phone are more likely to want to hear about horror stories. So I'm going to go to my sort of final topic. Yeah, I guess I say horror stories, and there is a sort of feeling in the industry of these things can go wrong. And actually, are there better ways of being able to do this, or at least what lessons can we learn? And I guess, Bart, maybe starting with you again, you know, these programs are challenging. You talked about one that you've been on, and just what did that mean to you? What are some of the lessons you learned, really, that you could share?
Yeah, well, it looks like a long time ago, but I just completed like a little bit over a year the implementation in Heineken. It was probably a very difficult and hard journey, but it's also a very rewarding journey if you see that there is some success coming out of it. I think a couple of points here. First of all, it's extremely important that everybody is aligned on why we're doing this. So executive sponsorship, executive buy-in is key. This is a program that is not done in a month or in 2 months. It's a long-term program, so it's important that you stick to the story and the reasons why, having the end state in mind, and not shifting gears in the middle of the program or going left or going right. So keeping your focus on why you're doing it, and getting this message constantly repeated also by the executive team, so that everybody knows, okay, we are behind, we know what we're doing, and we know why. I think the second point is yourself, because it's an expensive program. We talked about the business case, but if you look at the work that a company can do before actually starting the program, it already gets you a real head start the moment that you really kick off the program. I could tell stories about being in 2018 and cleaning data in French francs in an account. Well, this is something that you can do up front. You can look at your data, you can clean, you can cleanse, you can look at your architecture. These are all things that you actually do up front, so that you are clean and you don't have to deal with this the moment that you really start implementing and you're running against the clock. I think that's absolutely key. And I would say a third one is getting the right team together. And then I'm talking, first of all, about the internal team in the company. This should be your best team. This should not be, you should not backfill a program and leave your best people in the business. This is too important for the future. So make sure that you have people with the mindset, the willingness to actually be in such a program and deliver what needs to be delivered. So that's very, very important and a crucial success factor. And when I talk about team, it's not only an internal team, it's also the external partner. I think it's crucial that you have a good fit, that you have the right connection. I was lucky to work with Partha, with Abby, with a couple of people who are currently probably on the call and who actually have brought us through this journey together. And for me, as I was leading the program, what was really important is I didn't feel the difference anymore between an external person and an internal person. This was just one team working together towards the same goal. And that's so important because it's heavy. Let's be honest. It's a heavy challenge, a heavy workload. So you need to do it together. And that's the only way you can get out of it. But I'm happy we did it.
And maybe, Vandana, if I can ask you to add the same thing.
Yeah. I think Bart covered quite a few points which I was going to share. But for me, the most important thing is break down silos as early as possible. Showcase more often, be visible. The more you share via newsletters or any kind of communications, people come along with you. You have to take the people with you. Otherwise, who is going to adapt and adopt it? You? No, the project team should not. It is the people you have to carry. They have to believe in the transformation because we finance people will go back to our good old Excel. Nothing wrong with that, but then why are we investing billions of dollars in it? So I think the more you take the people along, show them the value, show them the power of it, make sure more demos are out there, make sure more understanding is out there, you get a better buy-in. You have to get an executive buy-in, but people on the ground should buy in as well. Otherwise, you lost it right there. Transformations don't work.
And obviously, Scott, I'm going to ask you as well. What's your perspective?
I agree with everything Bart, Vandana, you're saying. The change management piece is extremely important to get the adoption within the organization. The one thing I might add to this is ultimately your deployment approach matters. Understand some of the most key data elements and how they fit into your business processes. I think earlier in the presentation today, your house, really lays it out. The processes, the data, and the systems involved within it, and understand how those systems need to be deployed, how the data needs to be really integrated into it, and the people, the processes, and the change that's all involved, bringing that together and deploying it in a really thoughtful way for the organization.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I don't know if anyone else can see, but I can see Partha getting very excited on the corner of my screen. Obviously saying, Scott,
Right you are.
Everything you're saying. And now, I mean, we could talk for hours. Hopefully we will talk again as a group, but I think thank you. I know a lot of people on the call will have wanted to hear your perspectives on what it's really like. I think Bart, Vandana, Scott, actually very inspiring stories there of where you can get value and how this can be successful. So thank you, Simon, as well, for giving me some of the terminology I still didn't understand. So I now get it. You've very simplified it. So thank you very much. So yeah, thank you for all of your time. I've loved doing the panel. And if people have questions, I'm sure they can reach out directly.